This is not a Rails show, but from time to time we are going to be showcasing techniques or gems on a Rails project. Creating a Rails project that looks relatively well and works out of the box is something that can take some time, especially if you're gonna use it just for 1 or 2 shots in a video. A great solution for this kind of issues is to create a Rails application template. A Rails application template is just a Ruby script that follows a simple DSL, allowing us to invoke different Rails-related actions, as well as external shell commands, in order to perform specific actions to our newly created application without our involvement. The first step is to create a template file. As I mentioned on a previous episode, I use AwesomePrint in most of my projects, so we can call the gem method to add a gem to our gem file. If you had other gems that you regularly include on your projects, they could be added here as well. We can even create gem groups. Let's try it out to see how we are going so far. To create a new Rails application using our template, we can pass to the Rails new command the m flag with the path to our template. Note that if we publish this template somewhere over the internet, we can use the file URL instead of the local path. But let's go back to trying it out locally. Now that the application creation has finished, we can check out our gem file and see that AwesomePrint and both groups we added are present. That's how a Rails application template works. You define what you want on your application from its inception, and the template takes care of producing it. Since we included Rubocop on our gem file, let's ask our template to write a rubocop.yaml file to configure it. To create a plain file, we use the file method, passing the file relative path from our root directory as the first argument, and the desired file content as the second. We now have an application, so we cannot use Rails new to implement our changes. But what we can do is run a generator to execute it. To apply a template to an existing application, we would run the app template generator with the location environment variable passed in as an argument. Again, the path can be a remote URL, but of course we will stick with the local one. Unfortunately, most template methods are not idempotent, so we can see that our gem calls has been duplicated, so keep this in mind. With that caveat in mind, let's take a look at our newly created rubocop.yaml file. So far, we've been creating files one way or another. Let's do something more involved. Over the last few years, I've gotten used to using Tailwind CSS in my projects. Let's install it using our template. We first need to add the gem to the gem file, which will make sure we have the Tailwind Rails gem available after the bundle install has been run. The next step to installing Tailwind CSS the Rails way is to run the Tailwind CSS :install command. To run a command, we can use the Rails command method. This method is the equivalent of calling the Rails command in the terminal from the project's root directory. Like the terminal command, we need to pass the name of the generator to run. In our case, is Tailwind CSS :install. We can always use generators to, for example, create a scaffold for a user. We just need to use the generate method, passing the generator name as the first argument, and the generator's arguments at the second. And of course, since we are creating a table on a database, we need to run our migrations. Also, we don't want to see the Rails welcome screen when we go to the root path, so let's add a route to our routes file. Let's run the generator one more time and run the server. If we navigate to our root path, we can now see the user's index page, stylized with Tailwind CSS and completely functional, which means that the migrations have already been run. Finally, since this will be the default application definition to use in every project, we can create a commit so that we don't have a bunch of files to stage right out of the box. To do so, we can call the git method with the init symbol as its argument to initialize the repository. Then we can stage all changes and finally commit with a message. Let's run the template and check the status of our repository. Something went wrong here. we can see that even though we added all the files and committed, there are still several files to commit. The problem was that some of the commands we run actually get run after the bundle install step. An example of this is the Tailwind installer. We need the Tailwind CSS Rails gem available in order to run Rail Tailwind's install, so it gets run after bundling. We also saw that the scaffold generator was actually styled using Tailwind, which means that it was run after even that. For these situations, Rails application templates have an after bundle callback. The after bundle method will run all the steps inside its block after the bundle install step has been run, giving us some extra flexibility. If we run the template now, we can see that all the changes have been committed, as we expected. Rails application templates ship with a series of methods that allows us to ask questions to our users in order to customize the template at execution time. We have the ask, yes, and no methods. For example, we can ask our user if they actually want to commit the changes. And when we run the template, we'll be able to decide if we want to execute this last step. That's a quick look at how Rails application templates work. You can learn more about them on the Rails guides. You can also find a great collection of templates on the Rails Bytes site. Finally, you can view our templates for the MVCasts episodes on GitHub. We'll be updating and modifying it accordingly to our needs, and it's free for you to use. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you on the next one.